Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, I prepared a speech, but I decided that I'm not going to read anything because I have to tell you one thing. I have been involved in returning stolen artifacts from 2002 until 2011. I was able to return about 6,000 artifacts. But the most important point that I was arguing, I was talking, that I was not after every artifact that left Egypt, because there is many artifacts left Egypt legally through excavations. Our law used to give 50% to every expedition. Also, Antiquities used to be sold from Egypt until 1983. Then I am not against every artifact in a museum, but I'm against any artifact that has been taken illegally out of the country. For example, I will give you 3 examples. The bust of Nefertiti. The bust of Nefertiti in Berlin left the excavator who excavated that bust in 1912. He hid it in a box. He took it out illegally out of the country. Rosetta Stone was taken by the British, given to the French. Why? What is the reason for that? The Zodiac, a thief, a French thief, came to Egypt. He cut the ceiling of a temple and put it at the Louvre. Why I changed my view and I began to be severe with some museums? Because I began to ask to say, we are opening the Grand Museum. By the way, if you talk about your museums that are better than our museums, that's not true. In Egypt, we built the best 2 museums going to be in the world. One of them is the Grand Museum, the second is the Civilization Museum, and other 20 museums all over Egypt. The other important thing, bad restoration of the mosque. But you, in the British Museum, look what happened to the marble when they restored it badly. In the Royal Art Museum in Brussels, they took a mosque, a portrait, and they put it under the X-ray, and they damaged it completely. Then we cannot say about this. But I'm talking about when I asked 5 museums to give us 5 pieces for a loan for 3 months at the opening of the Grand Museum. I wrote to the British Museum, and I wrote to have Rosetta Stone. I wrote to Berlin for the bust of Nefertiti. I wrote to the Louvre for the Zodiac. I wrote to Hildesheim for the Hem-Yono, the architect of the Great Pyramid. I wrote to Boston for Ankaf bust. All of them, they said, we cannot give it to you. Look, at this point, we are giving every country expeditions. I sent King Tut, came to London, went to America, everywhere. Every museum asked for a loan, we give them the loan. And this director of this museum in Berlin, he said, how can I guarantee that no marches will happen in Cairo and people will say, no, bust of Nefertiti cannot go to Egypt? I said a big, large statement, and I said, we are not the pirates of the Caribbean. If we signed a contract, we respect this contract. And this is why after this, I began to be severe in looking at what museums do. And I will tell you what happened between the British Museum. I just was in a dinner at the British Museum between the statues of ancient Egypt. And the director of the museum gave a speech to welcome me, and I gave a speech. I did not say directly, I need Rosetta Stone. No. I said, I'm the only one who can talk to the pharaohs. While I was eating, Ramses II told me, Zahi, we miss Egypt very much. And Thutmose III said, also I miss Egypt, Zahi, very much. We need to go back with you. But the two decided, and they told me, we decided not to go back with you to Egypt, but take Rosetta Stone, because it's the icon of our Egyptian identity. I will not tell you that, please let me finish, that all the papers, all the newspapers in England and London, most of them appreciated what I said. Most of them wanted Rosetta Stone to come back to Egypt. because it is the icon of the Egyptian identity. Actually, it was shown in a dark area. After I said this, they took it out of the dark and they put it in a light for the people to see. Then I'm not asking for every object in the British Museum to come back. I'm asking for certain objects that illegally went out of Egypt. The other important point that I want to tell you, that still museums practice imperialism. Still museums practice bad things against our countries. Look, every curator and every director in a museum, if he sees an artifact, he will know if this artifact is stolen or not, right away. Someone went to a tomb in the West Bank of Luxor. He cut 4 reliefs and he brought it to the Louvre. The Louvre bought 4 reliefs. They know they were stolen from Egypt. I found out, I sent a letter to the director of the Louvre. The director of the Louvre called me and said, please, give us 6 months, I will return it back. In the same time, I wrote a letter to every museum in the world, don't buy stolen artifacts. Because when you buy stolen artifacts, when a thief enters a tomb to cut 1 relief, he does not cut only the relief, he damages the whole tomb. Then there is a damage of the spiritual value of this civilization that these museums are doing. Then 1 year passed, and the museum did not return the artifacts. Then they applied to work at Saqqara. I stopped their expedition. One day, our president called me, and he said that Sarkozy called me this morning. He said, Zahi Hawass stopped our expedition. Why did you do this? I said, do you have time, Mr. President, to explain to you? I explained to him. I said, I had the right to stop them. How they can work in Egypt, and they're doing that. And we have many examples of doing this. In the same time, look at what museums are doing now. North Hamilton Museum sold a statue. A museum, its duty to preserve and to show in a better way for education to the world. North Hamilton Museum sold a statue to a rich Arab, and that statue will be shown in a room hidden and no one will see. Last month, Toledo Museum in Ohio sold 23 objects. I am a member now of the Committee for Returning Stolen Artifacts. I was the head of this committee for 12 years. But now I wrote a letter to the district schools of Ohio. And I told them, don't go and visit this museum. Why do you have to go to a museum that they sell artifacts of a country is not their own? It is for other country. And they sold it to renovate the museum, and that's really something that's not fair at all. These museums are really, okay, now you have these objects in your museums. Then you have to help. What's happening in Libya now, or Iraq and Syria? It's something that all of us has to go and help. These objects are going to be distracted by terrorists. What did you do? What museums did? Nothing. The Louvre was saying we can have their objects in our museum. Is this something to be said? I don't think that this is fair at all. I thought that museums should cooperate, all of them together, and try to teach curators in these museums how they can hide the artifacts away from the terrorists. Then I really see that we have a big problem here. We are not asking only to return the artifacts that have been taken illegally out of the countries and shown. How do you show this? How do you show it to the public? Do you say that this has been stolen? It was not taken by the, I told you, you have in the British Museum 60% objects when left illegally. Leave this. But the objects that left illegally should come back to the country. Museums should stop the practice of imperialism, because I really believe this is imperialism. And thank you.